All right, this is our first lesson of writing test, and we are going to look at academic writing task 1. In this one, we're going to look at describing data and making approximation. So let's just start the lesson. In this lesson, we're going to be looking at describing data and making approximations. The activities that we're going to look at are describing increases and decreases. How do we describe increases and decreases? You will be presented with a graph, with the process. How do we describe the increases and decreases? We're going to look at matching and sentence formation, what sort of sentences we can use. And we are going to look at approximation in terms of sentence writing. How do we write and talk about approximations? All right, what is academic writing task 1? In academic writing task 1, test takers will be presented with a graph, table, chart, or a diagram. Test takers will be asked to describe and summarize the information in their own words. This might involve describing and summarizing data, describing the stages of a process or how something works, or describing an object or event. Test takers should write at least 150 words in a formal academic style. The recommended time for this task is 20 minutes. All right, let's look at describing increases and decreasing. When you're describing increases and decreases, you will have to look at, if it's a graph, you will have to look at the vertical axis, what it shows, and you'll have to look at horizontal axis, what does that show, right? That will be your starting point. What might be included in here will be, for example, the details, the description of the main points of the graph and supporting data taken from the graph. So in vertical axis, you might be presented with percentages, for example. You could be presented with different things, but you have to make sure that you're looking at what is presented in a vertical axis. In horizontal axis, for example, it could be dates, months, years, whatever is presented to you, that will be. This is just an example. So let's look at our first activity. Let's look at this chart. Maybe you'll get a graph like this in your test, or you might be presented with a different thing. So look at the line graph here and read the description. Let's read this description. This is body paragraph. You will have to come up with introduction, you will have to come up with overview, and you'll have to come up with a body paragraph. Let's just look at the body paragraph and understand how one can describe increases and decreases. So I'm going to read this out at the beginning of the period. So look at the graph. So what is it on vertical axis? The vertical axis gives you rate in terms of percentages, right? So it's been given to you from 4.2% to 5.8%, all right? And also pay attention to the heading. What is the heading? Heading is UK employment rates, 16 plus year olds from a period of May 2003 to July 2006. And that's what's given to you in horizontal axis, right? So from May 2003 to July 2006. That's the period that has been given to you. And the line graph shows the trend. So let's read out the body paragraph. At the beginning of the period, unemployment stood at 5.1%, right? So the line starts from 5.1% in May 2003. That was the trend. A few months later, the figure had risen slightly to 5.2%. Unemployment then remained stable until September 2003. From this point on, there was a steady downward trend, and by January 2004, the rate had fallen to around 4.9%. It stayed at this level until May the same year, but the May to July, there was another small drop of 1%. There was no further changes in the level of unemployment until March the following year. From March to May 2005, there was a small increase of 1%, but this did not last long. And the figure had fallen back to 4.8% by July. From September 2005 onwards, however, there was a marked upward trend in the rate of unemployment in the UK. From September 2005 to November, the same year, the figure shot up from 4.8 to 5.2%. The rate remained stable for a few months, but then rose sharply again and had reached a peak of approximately 5.7% by July 2008. So you can see when you're describing increases and decreases, you can see the phrases in bold. These are the things that you will learn how you can also use them to be able to explain the increases and decreases. All right, so let's look at this, the structure of how you're going to use it. First of all, in first activity, I want you to read the description again and find the phrases in bold and think about how do we describe them. So find went up and down frequently, which phrase is describing that. Maybe you will find that one, maybe you will not, but we will discuss that either way. Did not change. There will be two phrases describing that nothing changed, remained the same, for example. Went up a little. How do we describe that? There will be two phrases for that. Went up very quickly. There will be two phrases for that. Arrived at its highest point. How do we describe that in bold phrases? Went up noticeably over a period. How do we describe that? Went down, two phrases you should be able to find, and then went down gradually over a period. In the last activity, which is this activity, there were some useful phrases for describing increase and decreases. Here are the two sentence structures for doing this. So you can use two structures to talk about them, right? The first structure is noun phrase plus verb plus adverb, okay? Noun phrase plus verb plus adverb. So you've got unemployment rate, that is the noun phrase, rose, that's verb, and then you use rapidly, right? Adverb. Right? So the unemployment rose rapidly. Let's look at the other one. The cost of living is a noun phrase, then fell, which is verb, and then adverb dramatically, right? So you have to learn all of these adverbs, verbs, and a noun phrase. That's one structure that you can use, noun phrase plus verb plus adverb. The other structure that you can use is there is, or are, or there has been, okay, or there have been, all right? Plus the noun phrase. The noun phrase is rise in unemployment and increase in cost of living. All right. This is all a noun phrase. Okay. So you can use this structure to explain the increases and decreases as well. Let's look at the answers. Pause the video here. Do exercise 1 on your own. And when you come back, we're going to review the answers. All right, let's look at the answers here. Went up and down frequently. You should have found fluctuated a great deal. Actually, it's not in the description in body paragraph. So, but if you wanted to talk about went up and down frequently, you can say fluctuation or fluctuated a great deal. Okay, fluctuated is a word that you should use when it's going up and down. Right? It's called fluctuation. Did not change. There should be two phrases that you should have found. Remain stable is one of them, and stayed at this level. Went up a little. There was a small increase. Had risen slightly. These are the phrases that you can use if you're talking about little. Slightly, small increase. Went up very quickly. The figure shot up or rose sharply. Quickly, sharply. Okay, you can use that as well. Arrived at its highest point, reached a peak. So highest point is the peak. So you would say reached a peak. Went up noticeably over a period. There was a marked upward trend. Marked upward trend noticeable. Went down, two phrases you should be able to find. Had fallen, right? Went down, had fallen. And there was another small drop. Okay, a small drop represents something that's going down. Went down gradually over a period of time or period. There was a steady, gradually means steady, right? Downward trend. So these are the phrases that you can use when you're describing increases and decreases. All right, let's talk about this one. The unemployment rate rose dramatically. What's the structure here? Sentence structure is noun phrase plus verb plus adverb. The unemployment rate, that's the noun, rose, verb, and adverb is dramatically, right? The tense used, and the reason for this, that is the information is in the past, therefore the past simple is used. So the unemployment rose, that's a past simple, dramatically, okay? Because the information is in the past, it's in 2003 or 6, right? Then if you wanted to use the other structure, there was, right? This is another structure that you can use. There was a dramatic rise in, we're using was because it's in the past. So there was a dramatic rise in the unemployment rate. The structure is the noun phrase, right? There was and the noun phrase. These are two structures that you can use. All right, let's look at this activity. I want you to change this structures. So finish each sentence below so that it means the same as the one given. It's going to be the same. You're just learning how to use the structures differently. So the first structure is the price of oil rose sharply. What's the structure here? The price, the noun phrase, rose, verb plus adverb, right? Sharply. There, rose means it's past, so obviously was, there was, and then you will use the structure. Pause the video here, do this exercise on your own, and when you come back, we'll review the answers. All right, let's look at the answers. So there was a sharp rise in the price of oil. The price of oil rose sharply. There was a rise. There was a sharp rise, because sharply you will use sharp rise in the price of oil. This is there was and the noun phrase. Okay. Now let's talk about the second one. There is a noticeable increase in temperature from May onwards. Temperature increases noticeably from May onwards. Number three, the number of people attending the theater has fallen dramatically. There has been a dramatic fall in the number of people attending the theater. Number four, there has been or had been, it's in the past, had been a steady rise in DVD sales during the first 6 months of the year. DVD sales had risen steadily during the first 6 months of the year. Number five, there has been a rapid growth in the use of alternative energy sources. The use of alternative energy sources has grown rapidly. Number six, the popularity of self-catering holidays decreased significantly during 1990s. There was a significant decrease in the popularity of self-catering holidays during 1990s. It's very important that you use different structures to show the examiner that you have a wider range of grammatical structures that you can use, and you will be able to get higher mark if you do that. If you're just using one structure, you are going to score a lower score. So be careful with that. That's the reason why you need to know more than one structures, and you should be able to use them in your exam. All right, let's talk about, let's do another activity. Activity number two, sales figures for oranges rose from 4,000 kilos to 7,850 kilos. This one, we're talking about approximations, right? So how do we explain it? Instead of saying rose from 4,000 kilos to 7,850 kilos, you can also say it nearly doubled. It nearly doubled or almost doubled. That's another way of saying this. These are called approximations. Okay, it's not always possible to use exact numbers, so these type of approximations are required, and you should be able to use them. So let's just do this activity and understand how we make approximations. It can be difficult to use exact numbers when describing charts. A useful strategy for dealing with this is making approximations, right? For example, if sales figures for oranges from 4,000 kilos to 7,850 kilos, you can say orange sales almost doubled, right? Instead of saying that it rose from 4,000 kilos to 7,850 kilos, you can say almost doubled, right? So you're using approximation, and you're telling the examiner that you can also use approximation. You will be rewarded for that. Here are some useful words and phrases for making approximations. Match the phrases. Do this activity on your own. Pause the video here. Match the phrases on the left with the same meaning on the right. Do this activity on your own, a quick activity, and when you come back, we'll review the answers. All right, let's look at the answers. So number one is C, just over means slightly more than. Approximately is around, and just under, nearly. It's not the same, but it's nearly. That means just under let's say 8,000. So nearly 8,000 or just under 8,000, you can also say, use those adverbs. All right, let's talk about these ones. All right, let's do this activity. So in this activity, we are going to write sentences about following bar charts. On the left-hand side, you can see the bar chart, which shows changes in the quantities of imports of certain electronic goods. Use the words in the boxes. So let's just look at this chart here. We've got on the vertical axis millions of units, yeah, and then on the horizontal axis we've got different electronics, so DVD players, CD players, televisions, radios, video recorders, etc., etc. You have these phrases in these boxes: just over, approximately, just under, around, nearly, slightly, more than, halved, doubled, tripled, fell by, rose by, a quarter, a third. Try to use all of these phrases and try to make sentences. Looking at the graph, what happened to DVD players in 2000. So you can see the labels there. The green bar represents year 2000, and the blue bar represents year 2006. How would you explain the difference and what happened to their sales between 2000 to 2016? Try to make these sentences on your own. Pause the video here, do this activity on your own, and when you come back, we'll review the answers. All right. So on the before we review the answers, let's look at the things that we talked about. What is on the vertical axis? Millions of units, right? Very important that you analyze the chart before you write any words, because then you will know what you're writing about. Okay. Horizontal axis showed 5 electronic or electric goods. What do the two colors represents? It represents 2 years. Green one represents year 2000 and blue represents year 2006. Write one sentence about each of the electronic goods using the language provided in the text boxes, and I've given you the boxes. Try to use that. Now let's look at the answers. All right, number 1, imports of DVD players nearly, almost, approximately doubled, right? From 3 to 5.8, that's what you can say about DVD players. Let's talk about number 2, imports of CD players fell by just under. You could use under, approximately, nearly, a quarter. Okay, number 3, the number of televisions imported rose by just over, slightly, more than a third. We're not using exact numbers here, we're using approximations, right? These are the phrases that you can use for approximations. Number 4, the number of imported radios rose by slightly more than just over a quarter. Yeah. Number 5, imports of video recorders approximately halved, right? From 6.2 to 2.8, approximately half. So you can use approximately here. All right, that's all I had for this video. We learned approximations and describing increases and decreases, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you.